So I'll record this for the people that aren't here. So we're going to check into server 1. We're going to look at some user account, learn about some user account stuff. I mean, there is a section on user accounts and test out, but you know, the test out can't be as smart as I am, so probably not. I'm going to check out John Doe. Just go to the properties of him real quick. There's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't really, you know, it's not that important. I don't have to have all these fields filled out. That's just for visualization and stuff. Although some companies do fill out all of these fields and they'll attach a web interface to it for like company employee lookup. That is possible. I had a friend who graduated high school with, he developed a web interface for that. I think it was for one of the military. We're doing searching for people. The tabs that are important in here, the properties of John Doe, the account tab, the login name and the pre-Active Directory login name typically always be the same thing. It's confusing if they're different. The only thing really different about the two is, well, one of them has an email address login at contosa.com. The other one's the legacy domain / and then the username. So they should be kept consistent. The two buttons under here are normally not used too much. Login hours. You know, if you're really, really scared about security and you've got some people that don't work on the weekends, you can block out if they don't work after hours. You can turn off when they can log in and when they can't. So you can block out and they can only work during business hours or something. That prevent brute force attacks from getting into the system during non-working hours. I doubt that's covered too often. Also, log on to, you can limit a person down to a certain number of computers they can log into. Again, probably pretty rare. I might see this kiosk user that auto logs in. So the gift registry machine, or something like that at Target might use something like this. The cashiers at Kroger might limit them to just the front POS systems and not the PCs in the back where the managers are. Actually, I think the managers are up top, the second story, where they get to look down at everybody. But you could limit something like that. And if it was a kiosk system, you could go up here to environment and start a program. You know, a computer boots up, auto logs in as a user and only on that machine, and auto starts a program that opens up the gift registry. Whatever combination you might be able to do with that, you can. Probably not something you'll run into much. We have unlock account. Key into that, you can't lock an account according to Microsoft. Only the user or a hacker can lock their accounts. And that's locked because they tried the password too many times and it locks out. Of course, you would have to have password, you know, lockout in group policy set up before that would take place. Default, we don't have that set up, but Microsoft says only the user can lock their account out, or a hacker. I mean, if you knew their username, yes, you could try to log into their account multiple times with a bad password and lock it out. But why would you want to do that? So the key here is you as an administrator can unlock an account, but you can't lock it. You can, however, use this account options down here and disable the accounts. Although it would be faster just to right click the icon of the user and click disabled and go into here and disable the account. Once the account's running, you're probably not going to change much of the account options. Maybe if the user forgot their password and you need to reset it, the user must change password and next logon would need to be checked. Although that's typically available to you when you right click and say reset password. There's normally an option right there to turn that on at that point. Nothing else is really normally messed with except for certain company business specific situations. Now, the account expiration is important. If you have any type of temporary employees coming in, you want to make sure you put an expiration date. So you have an assistant that's going on vacation. The company hired a temporary employee to work for that week or 2 weeks while they're away, medical leave, vacation, or whatever. You have an account for that temporary employee. You want to set an expiration date when that's supposed to end, or any type of account that's just temporary. The reason for that is, you might have a vendor that needs to upload a file. It's going to take 3 days because you didn't have fast internet at the time. You didn't have gig speed or 10 gig speed. So you create an account, put it out there, and they upload the file and you forget to set an expiration date. 6 months later, it's still there. And you've taught about this before, but you didn't actually do it. You just teach about it and you don't actually do it. And then Jonesboro IT contacts BB's IT, and you get informed that there's a PC hacking a bank in another state, or Jonesboro or somewhere. And then they look at you and say, it's on your servers, what's going on? You go and investigate and see they logged into that account you forgot to disable. Oddly specific, never really happened to me. It wouldn't have been that computer over there on that desk either. So. Actually, I think I've upgraded that PC since that happened. But always make sure you set an expiration. I had a lab in my virtualization class. They had to use a temporary account for backing up that I'd created. So before they could do that, I did have to go into that system and extend the expiration date that expired February 10th of 2021 to expire February 16th of this year. I teach that class once a year, so we just ended up being right about the same time when we got to that point in the lab. But I'm very careful now to make sure anything that's going to be used only one time a year, something's expired, especially if it's got an easy password like pass1234 or password or something simple like that, because it will get hacked, guaranteed. So that's this page. Just be careful with those temporary accounts. You won't remember to disable it. Not every time. Profile tab used to be important. It's kind of obsolete now with Office 365 and OneDrive synchronization. Profiles used to store like all the Windows settings, the documents folder, the screensaver, the backdrop, and what printer you're connected to. But that slowed down logging in, especially bigger and bigger companies. So I don't know too many people that use Profile anymore. Home folder has kind of gone away too. You used to connect it to a shared folder location and map the drive letter to it. When you save something in Microsoft Word, it would jump to the drive letter that was on the server to save the file instead of the documents folder. And that was useful because everybody saved their stuff to the server and it was the one computer that was backed up. It worked really good when PCs died, which they do. It could just be swapped out, the user log into the new computer and hey, all the files are still on that drive letter in their home folder. But everybody's using OneDrive now, Office 365. I mean, not everybody, but the majority of the people that I've seen have switched over to that. So setting up a home folder is probably legacy, obsolete, maybe something we probably not going to cover too heavily, because syncing things to the cloud and the internet safer. Anyway, as far as a disaster occurs. The last tab up here, member of. Who are you a member of? As you get promoted and people move up in the company, you may add them to other groups that have rights to different resources. That's typically how you control permissions to things. Is groups have permissions added to them, and then you add users into the groups. You don't really assign job rights and permissions to the user account. Assign them to groups, and then just add users as they move up into the company. So that's the properties on users. Let's talk about making an administrator account. I told people, make an administrator account. So we'll make a new user, and they'll go find the administrators group and add themselves into that and go, I've got an administrator account. Sort of. Let's go look at the administrator account under users. Check out the properties and the members tab. There's likely some other settings in some of those other tabs too that may be slightly different. Check out, he's not just a member of administrators, is he? There's a lot of stuff there. 6 groups. So what I would do, instead of trying to manually make an administrator account, which you should have an account that you log into a PC with to do your emails or documents and browsing the web, downloading stuff. And then you should have an administrator account where actually maybe resetting somebody's password, sharing out a folder, creating storage pools, things like that. Let's create John Doe an administrator account. I would copy, right click and copy administrator. That's how you create an administrator account. And I would do something like A_John. So it's almost the same, except his account that he uses for administration. Of course, this would be an IT person, not a regular person. Would be slightly different than his regular account. In this case, A_John Doe. Really easy for you to differentiate which one you use to do stuff like this, creating users, versus one where you're writing documents and memos and emails and downloading stuff and doing continuing education. So I go next. Notice the checkbox should already be password never expires. If that's not set, we need to fix your administrator account after you create them. That should be already checked, just like mine has. A_John.Doe. What I used on mine. If I go look at the properties of the account that was created, I noticed that, look at that. All the groups are there. So don't reinvent the wheel. There's also a bunch of pre-built groups that have descriptions and what that they are already preset to do. So a lot of junior admins and stuff, partial IT workers and stuff, they may just need to be added to a specific group to be able to do their job function instead of you having to try to give them the rights to do that. It may already be defined. Like I said, don't invent the wheel again when somebody else has it. Just make a template of it. Cut out a circle, put it on a wheelbarrow, go. As the saying goes. The last thing I wanted to cover was somebody's fired. What do you do with their account? You don't delete the account. Because a few weeks, somebody's liable to take their position. So I would disable the account. Here's the process of that, disable. Right click, disable, accounts disabled. You can disable, but you can't lock an account out. They're almost one and the same, but this is an administrator stopping the account from working. Locking out an account means a brute force attempt, or somebody was drunk and typed the password wrong too many times. Attempt. It was almost the same thing, but different too. How was it accomplished if the account is no longer active? It's the difference between disabled and locked out. Also tell you, permanently locking out an account is the preferred method, because an attacker is not going to tell you to unlock an account because he's trying to break into it. However, a regular user that can't log in will probably call you and go, I can't log in, and you find their account's locked out. Somebody trying to break in? Do they have disgruntled X or something, or espionage trying to occur? What's going on? Maybe something to look further into. So it's been a couple of weeks. Somebody's come in and replaced John Doe. What I would do is, do you remember the public share and all those, that gigabyte of junk we put out there that they did deduplicate? Remember John Doe owned all those files? Of course, we screwed it up on Monday, but we'll pretend he still owned those files. The replacement employee probably needs access to those. And we seen on Monday that if you delete an account, they no longer have access to all the files the old person created. Instead of having to fix all of that, you just disable the account until the replacement comes in, and then you rename. And once we rename this to, let's say, Jane come in, Jane Doe. As I hit enter, it's going to go, hey, name change. You want to fix them? Well, what you probably want to fix some stuff. Yes. So I would update the first and last name. Of course, I didn't change the last name on this one. And you can log in the login name. So once everything's all updated with the new person, remember that ID, that big SID number was what you're actually identified by. All of this is just what's being shown because of that number on everything. So you can easily change the login name, easily change all of this. None of this is locked. This is just what the user sees. Actual permissions are that great big long security ID. That's not changing. So I click OK. One more task before you enable the accounts, because the old employee may be disgruntled. And you don't want them sitting there trying to hit and log into his account, waiting for it to be enabled again. You want to change the password. And you would change the password. I'm not going to, because it's past 1, 2, 3, 4. It's grayed out. User must change password and next login, but that's because we put that checkbox. User can't change password just because it's a lab situation. That would not be grayed out on the normal user accounts. Should not be grayed out on a normal user account. You want them to change the password and next login. You call them and say, here's your temporary password. They log in, they set their account, so only they know it. You don't want that user coming back later and going, well, the administrator knows my password. He's the one that logged in and sent that nasty email to the boss. You don't want that to happen. So you don't want to know anybody's password. That's one of the reasons, it's security concepts. You can also unlock the account here too if you're changing somebody's password because they got drunk and forgot it. Or they just don't have a good brain. I had one student in Cisco I taught had to change his password every test. He never remembered his password. I finally decided that I was going to just reset the password and they'll do the change the next login and set his password and write it down. I kept it so I could just tell him what his password was every day. That was after about the 4th semester I had him. I finally got smart. I'm done. Changed your password. What, like 40 something times over the last 3 semesters. He was that bad. I don't know, some people have, I guess, issues, short-term memory issues or something, but. So once the password is changed, then you enable the accounts. Of course, I didn't actually change the password. This is a lab. But those would be the steps to handle accounts. You should rarely ever delete an account. Of course, we've enabled recycle bin, so that would help for a little bit. Unless that division just completely is going away and all of the work and everything that was part of that position is being deleted off the system, and then in that case, deleting the account might be okay. You still might want to put it in a archive folder for a few months before you actually delete it. And then it'd be in the recycle bin for a while before it got purged out of the system. So just for safety. That's what I went over in the first class. I didn't actually hit cancel on it. I want it to be past 1, 2, 3, 4 because so I remember what it is by Friday. Or next week when I try to log into Jane Doe, and I'm probably going to try John Doe and forget that I renamed it.